This is Mind Raid with the Koch brothers. Hey guys, welcome to Mind Raid with the Koch brothers. My name's Keoni, and my brother Erik can introduce himself here soon. We've come together to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our heart, and something that took a long time for us to put this podcast together. This guy right here, Doug Koch, our father. But before we do that, we want to talk about this process with the podcast, how long it took for us to get our shit together and to record our first podcast. Brother, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about this process.
Yep, my name is Erik Koch, the younger of the Koch bros.
And larger.
The larger, smaller
The bigger-
brother of
bigger
the
little
Koch
bro,
brothers.
yeah.
Yeah. We kind of changed roles there. But yeah, on the side of getting this podcast together, I know I've been talking about it. Keoni's been talking about it. It's been one of those things we're just not tech savvy, you know. I'm not the big tech savvy guy. I've done podcasts before. I've done streams with my video game channel, and even any tech guy out there will tell you how frustrating, especially audio, is to get started. So I apologize, because we've definitely been putting out there that we were doing a podcast, and I've had people ask me.
We bought shit like a year ago.
Right, over and over and over. But I will give full props to Keoni, because he took the time to make the cool little setup we got here now, and bought all the equipment to do it. So
Yeah, and this is going to be a work in progress. So this is something that I was thinking about today. Most of the people that are going to listen to this podcast, at least initially, know that we're mixed martial artists. We're lifetime martial artists is what we do. And I'm constantly talking with people in the gym about how the hardest thing to do in martial arts, or generally anything, is to just show up the first day and to make the step to do that. And I was thinking, I've given this feedback over and over and over and over. And then just recently, in the last couple of days, I'm like, you have been dragging your ass on this fucking podcast for a year. And, doing research here and there, looking up YouTube videos and putting it together just like we did in the beginning. We did it all ourselves. Probably should have invested a little more help. But I reached out to other people like Kyle Schlichter and Justin Houts and just tried to get ideas. And finally put it together, but realized just in the last week or two, like, we just got to do this goddamn thing. Like, we just got to do it and get it done. And it's not going to be a perfect product right away. I'm working with, rudimentary YouTube skills. But I think we got good audio. I think we'll do a good podcast. And the reason that I personally want to do this podcast with you is I think that we have a lot of perspective. I think that perspective was made really, really important to us at a young age from our mom and partially from our father, of course, as well. And I haven't really shared that perspective, because I've always tried to put myself in this place where I'm like, oh, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to stand on a pedestal or be that guy. But we've been pretty conscious. I mean, that one thing that I think that our family is kind of afflicted with is we think too much.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time inside of our thoughts. So that's getting some of that stuff out maybe is my goal now that I'm nearing 40, and getting the view of a younger brother and somebody who's been through this same type of journey with me is, something that we can share to the world.
Well, and one of the things, going back to, getting it all set up and not getting help from other people. I mean, it goes back, you want something done right, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a good skill to have, because the more we do this, the more we progress, the more we'll learn, and it'll be something that we won't forget. Do it so many times that, I mean, just like martial arts, do it so much, I don't have to roll every week, but when I roll, I'm not gonna, not gonna forget it. It's habit. But, and then also touching on, just the point of the podcast, going back to mom, having a conversation with mom, and it was a heated conversation, but having a conversation with her, and when she got mad at me, and she goes, "What are you doing then? What are you doing to to make a change, make a difference. And I told her one of the one times I got Mom
flustered.
That was it. And I told her, I'm like, well, Mom, you told me knowledge is power, right? So if I spread my ideas and I get people that can relate to me, or I change somebody else's perspective for the better, then I had done my job, you know? And once I told her that was, yep. And I gotta, well, good for you. That's what I like to hear.
She was trying to, but our mother is an absolute master of diverting attention. She's so smart and cunning that she'll argue with you incessantly, and then when you get close to having an iota of a point, she'll very, very cleverly sidetrack, and it'll usually be something that gets under your skin, so you take the bait and you run. And she'd never and when I learned that well into my 20s, it's like no. Let's stay on topic. Let's not move around too much.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of my idea with the podcast. I haven't done a podcast. I've done a podcast with gaming dudes, and that was comedy. And a lot of people know me as a fighter, but same thing you said. We were raised by people that were thinkers. We think outside the box, and I think that's something a lot of people in the world need.
Yeah.
You know. And, I mean, if you look at Joe Rogan's podcast, even he's got his opinions, and there's a lot of stuff I agree with. There's some stuff I disagree with, but the reason that that's such a cool podcast is because it's huge, and he tries to make people think.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Opens people's mind. Yeah.
Right. And I think, podcasts are becoming so popular now. I think it's one of those things that, if you're going to listen to a podcast, give your brain food. Yeah. Something worth investing time in, rather than just, and I'm not all against, comedy podcasts and stuff like that, but there's a million of those. And it'll make you laugh. That's great. But I think it's important to get real sometimes.
Yeah, especially in the age that we're living in now. And we'll go into talk about this, I'm sure, in future episodes, but we should be paying more attention to what's going on right now in the world. We should be engaging and connecting with other people. The internet, when it came about, the big thing that was sold to us was this power of connectivity and information, and people don't really use it for what we thought they were going to back in the day. They use it for like shopping and stroking their own ego and shit. And like, I get it, we're all guilty of it to a certain extent, some more than others, but education isn't free, and we're not talking to all of our brothers over in China. We're still engaged in fruitless war and being owned by the same old people. So the more people can connect and get aware of what's going on, the more they can take control of what the future is. So first thing that we wanted to talk about, and probably why I took so long to really push this thing forward, is because I knew that the first time that we talked, we were going to talk about Dad. We were going to talk about gravity, stuff that's emotional.
Yeah.
And it's been over a year. We wanted to talk about that when it was fresh, but I silently in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, how's this going to go? I want to make sure that I honor Dad with the best possible representation I can. And that put a lot of pressure on.
Yeah.
But now that we're here, we've got some perspective on it, which is kind of the whole point of the show.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. As time's gone, it'll always be an emotional thing to talk about, but just in the grand scheme of life, I still feel like I'm learning, even after his passing. And like you said, perspective. My perspective, that I've said it a million times, but I think I've grown more in the last year and a half than the 30 before. Just because something with so much gravity, something that affected me so much, had me look at myself and had to fix things that I've was pretty bad at or is terrible at, and I had to face those problems dead on. So it's taken us a while, but hey, man, I think of Dad every day. So there's no right time. I could do it whenever.
The thing I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about loss. I want to talk about Dad, and honor him and talk about what he was. It's hard to really summate in words what somebody like our dad was. And there's a lot of great dads. Everybody says, "Oh, our dad, my dad was the best dad in the whole world." And it's awesome that there's so many kids that can actually believe that and think that, but that it's not true. Our dad actually was the best dad in the whole world.
Yeah.
And it's been said and joked about, but my dad, your dad, was an incredibly giving person, and at some point in time in his life, he's chose to just go all in and completely commit to the idea of fatherhood and having a family. And he looked out for his family, and he stressed about his family, potentially to his own health's fault. Why don't you talk about Dad, growing up with Dad, and your memories of him, and we'll talk about why he's such a badass in our lives and in the lives of a lot of other people, and then we'll talk about losing him and kind of how we changed after that, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So when I kind of explain, when I try to explain my relationship with Dad to people, it's kind of traditionally, you got the mother and the father. Usually the mother's the nurturer. She's gonna, come here, baby. She's gonna hold you. She's gonna make sure everything's okay. And then your dad's the enforcer. Right. Well, we were completely swapped, right? That's why, the term mama's boy. I was a daddy's boy, right? If mom and dad got in a fight, I'm more than likely taking dad's side, right? So nothing against my mom, but my mom, she takes that enforcer role.
She's an authoritarian feminist.
And that's great. I love mom. But dad was the person with all the issues that I've had in my life, even as a young kid, when it comes to, I really want this toy, or I want this. Mom doesn't give in on that. No. Dad was the one that he wanted to see his son happy.
He's a nurturer.
Right. And just in starting there, I was recently getting some of the old stuff out of mom's house, and probably one of the coolest memories I have of Dad was when the original Xbox was coming out. And I would and it's funny because you see this from like Ronan now, right? Or my nephew, Keoni's son,
Ronan Thor.
He tries the subliminal approach, like, oh, hey, this is cool, check this out.
Yeah, dude. Peyton and Ronan do this shit all the time, and I call them out on it right away. They'll go, oh man. Peyton does this one time. She goes into Hy-Vee, she goes, oh man. I go audibly, like at me, obviously. Me. I go, oh, what's the matter? Those new Reese's are out. Those things are so good. Looks like I can't have it. Just ask me to buy the damn things. Yeah, I'll buy you the Reese's. Yep. I mean, let's not do this. Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, it's funny because, I was guilty of the same way. My psychological warfare when I wanted something when I was younger was very, very methodical. It was subliminal and it was quiet treatment, right?
Yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah. So make me feel better, right? So, for months, this system was going to drop. It was all out. It was the new buzz. Halo was going to drop with it. So I'd make sure that whenever I was online and I was looking at it, Dad was right there. And I'm like, hey, Dad, check these graphics out. Check all this stuff out.
Let me tell you how much I want this.
Right. I want it so bad.
Over and over.
So I obsessed about it, and he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. He just kind of chummed me up a little bit there. And then when it got closer, Mom was real with me, and she's like, look, we can't afford it. Yeah. Like, you're going to have to wait, like, maybe down the road. And that crushed me, right? Yeah. That crushed me. And I know, and talking to Mom, I know Mom and Dad had a talk about, can we afford this? They decided, no, they can't do it. Yeah. So I knew the day it was coming out. I was in middle school. I was at school. I walk home, and I'll never forget because it was in their bedroom, right next to their bed, and Dad brought me in, and I could tell something was up, and he's like, I think there's something in there for you, and I was like,
your Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, exactly. It was the Red Ryder, and he had it in their closet, their bed, and they had it in their closet there, and he took it out, and it was an Xbox, and I lost my shit. And he told me how long he had been waiting out there to get that Xbox. And he was out there at like 7 a.m. Yeah. Stood in line, got me the Xbox. and this was completely against mom's.
Yeah.
This was all dad. You know,
It always was.
Yeah, right. But it was all dad, and I know they weren't rolling in the dough, and they didn't have all this money. But the older I get, when I take myself back there, I was very happy I got the system. But when I think about it now, the look on his face.
Oh yeah.
He got more joy out of seeing how happy I was than I was for the system. You know what I'm saying? And I was just cleaning. We were just cleaning mom's house, and that Xbox. I'm not gonna play original Xbox. Everything's better, but that's a keepsake. I'm gonna keep that because how much energy he spent just waiting for that. That little, and I'm not super materialistic, but I love gaming now, and that was kind of the beginning.
Yeah, I remember
what got me gaming seriously.
I remember when I came back and we played Halo for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
This is, I got to get it.
It's groundbreaking.
Immediately.
Yeah. So stuff like that. He was there for stuff like that, and then later in my life, even especially right when I moved to Milwaukee, dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of stuff that I wasn't used to, and I didn't know where it was coming from because I'd always been taught to be strong. You'll be good. I was fighting at the time, so but we'll get past this. Yeah, I never got past it. And there was a time when I moved up there and I was living with Anthony. I had a mental breakdown, and I actually put myself in not a psych ward, but I took myself to the hospital because I was like,
to get evaluated.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm in this mindset right now, and
well, and just so that people are clear and we're transparent, you and I at this point in time were not talking.
Yeah. So
we had a huge falling out.
Yep.
And as a result of a huge bunch of issues we might talk about, but we weren't talking. There was that stress on both of us too. And I remember Dad telling me this. I remember Dad saying I drove to Milwaukee last night at I don't know what time in the morning.
It was I called him at 12:30 at night, like midnight. And without a question, just I'm on my way. I'll be there. And I can't tell, even Mom, I love her to death, but if I'm being honest, if I'm like, Mom, you got to come here right now. I think if I told her the seriousness of it, if I got into the nitty gritty, she would have came. Dad, I didn't even need to explain. It was like, I'm coming. I'm on my way.
Yeah, he felt you, yeah.
And we were going through our issues. Not only that, I was just new in the city. I was completely new in a new city.
You're a new man, yeah.
I was by myself, and I had Dad there a lot for even the little day-to-day stuff that builds up when you don't have that person there to help you out or get you do whatever you need to do. And he came up. He got me. We drove back. We got back at 5 a.m, something like that. But I remember this is when we had the house in Lamont.
Yep.
They had the house in Lamont. And I'll never forget because I was still, my mind, I was in such a funk. I was outside and I was crying. And he came out, and Dad's usually, he's a warrior. He's he's always, stressed out about next move, or we got to make sure everything's good. And, I was sitting down and I was crying, and I was just, I told, he put his hand on my shoulder, and I told him, I'm like, Dad, I don't know why I'm thinking like this. Like, what the hell's going on? And as unsure, or not unsure, as sure as he possibly can, without a worry, he's like, son, I've been through all of this. I've been through the same thing. But just having his presence, just him talking to me, I could tell him stuff. After that day, I felt like I could tell him stuff I couldn't tell anybody.
Right.
And that's where, our relationship was always good, but I think mentally our relationship got way stronger after that. And I think he understood that. And he was the same way with you, call me every day. Hell, how was training? You do this, just shoot. Not for any rhyme or reason, just because he wanted to talk to his son. So, I spoke about it at his funeral, but that was kind of one of the hardest things with this is selfishly when he passed, I thought, well, what am I going to do?
Right.
That was he was my go-to. Now I don't have that then.
He was a lot of people's go-to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was my go-to in a lot of ways too, and I thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've got almost 10 years on you, and I thought the exact same thing. What am I going to do without Dad?
Yeah.
Like, he's always there. He's always been there, just for coffee.
Yeah.
Just to talk on a Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, I was talking to somebody recently about any potential issues that I might have, because I was real curious about what kind of issues I have.
Right.
I'm pretty confident that I know what my issues are, but I was talking about Dad and talking about how I didn't really feel like a man, or I didn't really understand what it felt like to be a man until he died.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the person that I was right up to that moment.
Yeah.
And there's not really much that I'm proud of now, looking back. I did some things. I accomplished some things. That's great. Fine. So do a lot of people. Who gives a shit?
Right.
The behavior that I exhibited was not always the most professional, the most, and even ethical, I would say. It was just not there were times when I was a fallible piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And after Dad passed away is when I kind of feel like I actually became a man, because I didn't have any choice.
Mm-hmm.
The only man that I knew, quote unquote, the man, was gone.
Yeah.
And that was a really lonely feeling. But speaking on his life, he would do anything for anybody at any time. He always assumed the best. But I remember when him and Mom separated for a while, he was working like 2 jobs, something like 12 hours a day, and I was home most of the day. But he was dedicating his life to raising me.
Yeah.
And he would do absolutely anything. It didn't matter what it took. It didn't matter if he could afford it or not. He would make sure that happened. I remember just randomly when you were talking about a time when, and I'm glad that I'm recording this, we went up to Lamont to visit Grandma and Grandpa, and they lived out on this old country road, right? Gravel road. And we went up there, and there was just this atrocious fucking blizzard.
Yeah. Like
horrible. And scary bad.
Yeah.
Like the kind we got trapped in one time on Highway 20. And I lost Tish's phone.
Yeah.
We were helping some people out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole story in itself right there. But yeah, I was thinking about this time we got trapped in this blizzard, and his Datsun truck got stuck on the gravel road. You know how there's a gravel road and then there's this long ass driveway that goes to their house? Mm-hmm. He ends up walking like a city block up this gravel road off 187, and then the length of their entire driveway in like waist deep snow. And he's carrying me.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's like, first of all, we're in a pretty hairy situation. Yeah. If we're waist deep on Dad, I can't even walk through this shit, and it's coming down like it is white out. Like, we got to get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. We got to Grandpa's door, and the front door was frozen shut.
Wow.
And Grandpa had to kick it open. But I remember Dad carrying me through the snow and being 6 years old, and thinking, this guy's saving my life. Like, right. I would probably die out here and expose out here. So no bullshit. This is legit. We break through the door. Grandma Lois puts me in a hot bath and puts me in some, sweatpants that maybe Rodney or somebody left behind. Sits me down in front of their console TV, and I'm finally warm, and I'm drinking like hot cocoa or something. I'm like, holy shit! Like we almost died out there.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the space shuttle take off.
Oh yeah.
And this thing takes off and
Yeah.
Challenger 1986, and I'm just like, wow. And I'll never forget that day.
Yeah.
But Dad sacrificed so much for us. He helped build every gym that we were ever in. And his expertise his knowledge is so vast that it's really hard to fathom what he is able to do with woodworking, metalworking, putting together small engines. He really is. We called him the old breed because he's a throwback to a man that really doesn't exist that much anymore. There's very few people outside of gearheads or truly blessed people that know the amount of information that somebody like our dad, who grew up on a farm, knows.
Well, and that's it. Like, it's not. He learned all his stuff hands on. It's not like he was going to school for it. He's literally grown up around all that. So like that was embedded in him. So, and I mean, on that point, it's the same thing. I'm not a motorhead. I'm not a car head. Not big on cars. Even when it comes to a lot of like handyman work, I'm not big on it. And it sucks because now he's gone. There's a lot of that stuff where I'm like, I don't know what to do now. I got to YouTube it.
Or ask your brother.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Keoni was responsible for putting my pull-up bar up.
Spent a lot of time though with Dad in the wood shop. He used to have this wood shop that was he rented it. It was downtown.
I remember
this
that
thing?
With the death elevator.
Yep. Some guy got crushed to death in this thing, and there's all kinds of horrible stories. There's a meat plant. There's hooks with flesh still attached to it.
Yeah, damn.
So he had this stink, but he would take me up there and he rented it cheap, and I would spend hours up there. And I was like, the whole time I was like, man, I don't really want to be up here. Like, I'm not interested in this shit. But I actually was interested in it, and I was picking things up here and there. Mm-hmm. And I'm so happy for that time now, because he wanted to share that with me, and I never really cast it aside as something I didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. I always took interest in it, and now that shit is so fascinating. And I've since, being an adult, taken on my own projects completely independent from him. Mm-hmm. But I always asked him, because he always knew. He always had a better plan. Mm-hmm. Whatever plan I had, he could more easily identify better ways to do it. Yep. And so, not only a valuable source of information, a great dad, but just he knew fucking everything. Yeah.
Yeah, man. The old term, you think you got it all figured out.
Yeah, you got it all figured out, and that's the irony is he was right. Yeah, I thought I did have it all figured out, and even when I had family members pass away, and I knew I never took Dad for granted. Yeah. I don't take Mom for granted. I don't take anybody for granted. Like, I knew at a very early age, as soon as I found out, and let me just back up for a minute. I have a memory sometimes that. I can remember shit that most people wouldn't even remember. Mm-hmm. The age of 6 and 7, you know what I mean? Like little shit. Yep. And I remember the first time that I realized that we had a end date. Right. I remember the first time that I was told, and my young consciousness comprehended mortality. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I thought of was how sad it was that there was going to be some day in my life when I was going to have to bury my parents, probably. Yeah. And I remember crying and crying and crying. And it would be like, the first time I really realized it, I essentially grieved for my parents 30 or 40 years before they pass away. Yeah. Right. Yep. And I continue to do this when the thought sets in and creeps in as a child that your parents someday are going to be gone. It's terrifying. Yeah. And then you experience that with grandparents sometimes early, or other people. Right. But nothing prepares you.
For parents especially.
Nothing prepares you. So with Dad, Dad was, at the time that people don't know our father, he was fit. He had worked out the day before he passed away. Yep. He was a staunch diet advocate. He ate himself pretty good outside of the cinnamon rolls. Dad, you're not fooling anybody. He had a cinnamon roll like every single day. Just because it was organic doesn't mean it was good for you. Yep. But otherwise, he did eat a very, very clean diet. And he, for all intents and purposes, we felt that he was in good health. Mm-hmm. And we improperly assumed that he was going to live to be 80, 90, 100. Yeah. Because he was so active, moving around. Yep. What we didn't really take into account was the fact he hadn't been to the doctor in like 10 years. Yep. And he had given up on Western medicine to a certain extent, and it almost said that. Yeah. Yeah. Which is something that we both kind of looked at after the fact. But the gravity of this situation, there's never going to be any way that we can put into words what our dad meant to these people. They'll never know. Mm-hmm. We can only honor them with stories as we move along in this. Yeah. But what a lot of people can identify with is loss and losing. And our dad lived a long old life, and his life concluded in exactly the manner that he wanted it to, and told us that he wanted it to. But of course, that loss leaves loss in the wake towards the people that love that person. Yeah. Everybody has to deal with this, and it's not necessarily a comfortable subject, but I think it's important to remember it. When you called me, I was on my way to the Canadian Rockies. Yep. I was almost close to the border. Yep. We had this horrible, horrible feeling about, and pretty much everybody did. But there was this really underlying bad feeling about this trip that I had. And it was a legitimate thing. We joked about it, but people actually did feel sketchy about this thing because
Right.
we were going to be out in the wilderness and exposed. Dad was one of the few people that thought everything was going to be just fine, which I realized this in retrospect. But I had this bad feeling. Everybody was kind of joking, you're going to get eaten by bears. And I'm like, maybe I'm going to get eaten by a fucking bear.
Yeah.
I really entertained this shit. I was actually looking up Canadian firearm restrictions so I could take a gun. You know what I mean? I'm going to be out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I had just taken over on the road. We're in North Dakota, and I get a call from you. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, sometimes you call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you got somebody to talk shit about, and you're pissed off.
Yeah.
Or you're whatever the case. Who knows? And most of the time, if I'm up, I'm answering that fucking call every time.
Yeah.
But I just take over. I'm tired as fuck. It's foggy, and we're driving. Courtney's driven a long, long time, and she's gonna put down for a while. And you give me a call, and I'm trying to wake up and shake my head out in the fog. I'm like, oh, I'll call him back. He's just got done with a bender. He's seeing what I'm up to. Somebody pissed him off, and he's hyped up and shadow boxing in a mirror somewhere.
Yeah.
He's pseudo beating the shit out of somebody.
Yep.
And so the call clears, and I'm listening to something like music, and you call immediately again, and then I'm like, okay, something's not right. Yep. I guess we've never really talked in depth about this. We've talked about it at times, but what do you remember about the chaos of that moment when you got a call, I'm assuming, from Mom?
From Mom. So I remember, because I was on, not a bender, but I stayed up really late.
Yeah.
Because it was a weekend, and I was playing video games. And for me, I knew right away, because Mom never calls me. You know? Like,
so you
Dad
felt
always
like
calls.
something was wrong right away.
And Mom's calling me at 6:30 when she's getting up.
Right.
Mom, if she's going to call me, it's going to be later in the day, some random thing here or there. But when Mom just gets up, like, I don't think she's ever done that. I don't think she's ever called me at like a 6:30. That's a Dad thing.
So
right?
that's weird.
As soon as, and I was tired, but as soon as I got that call, heart dropped to my stomach. I knew, and I'll never forget it because I remember thinking, okay, relax, whatever. I picked up the phone and I heard her voice and I knew.
Yep.
I knew that was it because frantic, she was crying.
It's panic. Yeah.
She was crying, and as soon as she told me that he wasn't breathing and he's blue, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew that was it, but me in my own panic mode, I flipped out on her and I'm like, Mom, why are you calling me? You need to call the paramedics because I don't know if this just happened or, you don't
have any information.
I have no information. And I'm also, the reason I called you because I forgot you were going on that trip. I thought you were, and I was like, why?
Well, how the fuck would you remember?
Yeah, I was like, why didn't you call Keoni? Keoni's in town. You're calling me. I'm in Milwaukee. I can't do anything. So as soon as she said that, and she calmed down. She's like, okay, you're right. I'll call 911 paramedics. She did that, and once I got off the phone, that was it. Like dead space. I was just staring into space, like shock. Almost like I felt like I was so tired. I can't believe this is happening. I'm trying to wake up from a bad dream.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Then when it sat in, that's when I had to call you. And I called you. And I remember Mom telling me she's going to call me when paramedics, all that stuff get there. I called you and I told you. And as soon as I got done with that call, it set in. And I dropped to the floor. Like I had no control of my body. I dropped to the floor. I was in a state of disbelief. And I probably waited 15 minutes for Mom to call me back. That was the longest 15 minutes that I've ever experienced in my life. Because I'm hoping there's a miracle. Something happened. Dad's in rough shape, but they're getting him to the hospital. They got, he's got a pulse. But deep down I knew that he was gone. And when she called me back and, she was crying, she's like, Dad's gone. And goosebumps, man. I just, dude, that losing a family member, but all the stuff we talked about, losing my dad, I talk to him every single day. That is one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing that'll ever happen to me.
Yeah.
And we got a long road. We're all gonna die. I may die, you may die, mom, so we're gonna deal with it. But our first one being someone so important, so close, not saying other people aren't, but being ingrained in our lives, making an effort to put himself there, to know that I'm never going to talk to him again, is, that I just, that was so hard for me to deal with. And I remember, me and Lindsay were fighting at the time. Lindsay's an ex-girlfriend of mine. She's a sweetheart. No bad things to say. I remember calling her, and she didn't answer, and I text her. I'm like, Lindsay, my dad's gone. You got to get here. Like, because I can't drive. Like, I'm like, I need somebody here. Somebody needs to be here. And she came right on over with her parents. And it's crazy, man, because I didn't want to drive 4 hours, like, knowing I'm in a car and I'm with my thoughts now.
Yeah, you can't
even and I can't control it, but I got to get home.
Yeah.
I got to get home.
You don't want to think.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I just, that one tiny little moment that I remember is I'm a wreck, and I'm thinking the whole time I should have done this. This is where I should have been there for this.
Guilt.
The guilt and stuff like that. And I remember I went, we had to stop for gas, and I stopped at a gas station. And it's something just little I do, but I always hold the door for everybody that's behind me. I never just walk through and do it. Mm-hmm. And I get that from Dad. Dad always did that. Whenever we go to the gas station, whenever we go to Hardee's, if we went into the thing, he's always holding the door for everybody. He never just cut people off. And I remember, it brought a smile to my face, because even though he was gone, I was going through all this doubt. There's so much that I do. We were just talking about it before the podcast, the way I talk to Hulk, the ridiculous way I talk to Hulk.
Yeah.
I was asking myself the other day, where the hell did I get that? And I got that from Dad.
Yeah.
I got that from Dad with Milo.
Yeah.
Growing up with Milo, the way he would talk to him. And that's how I talk. So I think about, he ingrained himself so much into our lives. There's so much that I do. So that is a representation of how he taught me. Mm-hmm. And the more perspective I get, that day will always, we had a scare the other day with Mom. So, that's
Mom's a rebel spirit.
Yeah, that's it. Mom's a rebel. Long story short, phone was turned off. I got T-boned. Didn't hear for her for like 8 or 9 hours, and I thought my mom was dead.
Yep.
Long story short, so I had deja vu of the same thing, and that that moment was a terrible moment for me. But the more I think about it now, the more we've given it time, and the perspective is, energy can't be destroyed. Can only be changed. Dad took that energy, he made us who we are, and it's still living, still going. I still do things every day that I wouldn't do if Dad didn't raise me. Mm-hmm. So perspective wise, it sucks losing your dad, but in a way now I feel like I'm stronger. I feel like my perspective, what I need to do, we are on a time clock. I got, time goes quicker. It seems like it goes quicker the older we get. But with his passing, I realize there's a lot of stuff I took for granted. Well, Dad will still be around. I'm going to become a UFC champion. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Now I realize, I thought I just turned 30. I'm 31. I ain't got that much time left, in the scheme of a career. There's a lot of goals that I had. And Dad's passing, in a way, like, reignited a lot of things that I was just kind of, that, like you said, it gets you ready for manhood, right? There was a lot of things, even whether my career fails or I'm in a tough pinch for money or whatever the issue is, I know my dad's there, he loves me, and he's going to help me, right? When the day he left Earth, it was like big boy pants. We got to put big boy pants on. We got to take all the stuff he's hounded on me with debt and all that stuff. I gotta step up. I gotta take care of this.
Yeah.
You know.
Man up.
Yeah, you got to man up. So, and it was, I remember, a week after he passed, it's one of my favorite, like pictures, like a piece of art, but it's a son. It's a son and a father, and the son they're made up of puzzle pieces, and the son is missing one piece. And then the father's got holes all over. There's a bunch of missing pieces. He's taking that final piece and he's giving it to him. And I feel like how great of a father dad was, and even being only 30 and not having him for another 30 years, I used to think, God damn it, how am I going to do this? But I feel stronger in a sense that he's not here physically to console me and, help me out. But I feel like I've learned so much from him. And even in his passing, the things that I've put off that I need to do. And I thank him every day for that. Even my last fight. I mean, you'll agree. That was the calmest week.
Yep.
There was no, in the corner, like before walking out for the fight, it was a certainty. There was no...
It was destiny.
We have, as a fighter, there are some days you just don't feel it. And you're like, man, I can't let this happen. You start overthinking. I didn't overthink. I'm just like, I know I'm going to win this fight.
Operate.
Yeah. I'm going to do this.
Yep.
And, that gets into the big, the more spiritual thing about it. But I fought to fight to have fun. I wasn't mean mugging my opponent. I wasn't like... I'm a killer. I'm gonna fuck this dude up. I did it because Dad wanted me to do it because I enjoyed doing it.
Right.
That takes me back to when I dropped out of high school and I didn't tell anybody. And Dad was giving me rides to your house to train.
Right.
And I remember he snapped on me, and he's like, "We're not gonna do this."
I remember
he's
that
like,
shit.
First time I ever heard Dad cuss, and he cussed me out bad.
What did he say? I gotta hear.
Oh man, he was like, "You think?" Same thing. You think you got it all figured out. He's like, this is so fucking stupid. You can't fucking do this. And I'm just like,
easy.
And I'm like, whoa, Big Papa Koch's going to whoop my ass. So I remember that. But then after that, I was thick-headed. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a professional fighter. I went a route that a lot of parents would just be like, all right.
Yeah, you're
do
loser.
It. It's all on you, I guess, And as much as even mom's like, if you don't finish school, you're out, you're done.
Yeah.
He hid that from Mom. He knew I was so happy doing it and I was so passionate about it that he would give me rides. He'd have me, he'd take me over there. He'd do that. He's just selfless guy.
Yeah.
And my last fight, I was thinking about it because I'm like, whenever I go to Dad's house, Conor McGregor, oh, you'd kill him. You'd kill him. He was always my number one fan. Like, don't matter who it was. It could be Prime Fade or Emelianenko. Yeah. I think you're big. You could take him.
He can't. He believed.
Yeah, he believed, and it wasn't like he was trying to make me feel good. He believed.
No, he actually
he believed it, right?
He did.
So I noticed, how much belief he had in me, and I remember that moment in the car and him continuing to go behind Mom's back and give me rides, and I was like, I got to go back to what I used to do. I got to have fun. I'm going to go out there and have fun. I want to be the kid training in the basement again. Like that's how I need to fight. And I've never been so calm in a fight. I was.
And just to elaborate on that, the pre-fight thing was perfect.
Yeah.
The week of the fight was absolutely perfect. There was not a hitch. And whenever there was a hitch, it was let go. There wasn't any holding on to any weird detail. The thing that people don't understand, I think, about the fight game is how much mental it actually is. There's a lot of mentality to it. So if you're a weak-minded person and you go into a scenario where you're fighting, what's going to happen is when you don't have the right Himalayan pink salt for your fish or some shit.
Yeah.
You freak out. Yeah. You're like, oh, man, this is a bad sign. Oh, geez, I'm going to... Strong people go, that's all right. No worries. I built that into my mind that it's not going to be always the way I want. I'm a champion. I'll adapt. No big deal. They don't even think about that type of thing. It doesn't even cross their mind.
Yeah.
There was nothing there wasn't an iota of that. And whenever there was some really annoying stimuli, it just bounced right off of us, and we just sailed right through the whole thing. It was really, really seamless, and I could tell that you were in a mental space that was perfect.
Oh man, it was, and we won't touch as much base on it now, but I'm not a religious person, but after losing Dad, I'm definitely a lot more spiritual.
Yeah.
And before I walked into the cage, I put my hand on my tattoo of my dad, and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go, And I had fun. I had fun doing it. Like, it was, going in there, there was no worry of loss in my mind. There was no, I'm going to get cut by the UFC. There was no, like, pressure. It's like, fuck this.
Just exists.
Like, this is an honor of my father.
Yeah.
I know he would be stoked. And that's what I thought about. I'm like, after this fight, if he was still here, he would be so fucking stoked.
Yeah.
He'd lose his mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That made me feel good. And
you can argue, if you're fighting with that feeling, that you're truly expressing your art at the highest medium.
Oh yeah.
The highest form of expression is when you're going out there and you're just letting it happen.
Yeah.
And just having fun doing it.
Well, and even, in a way, my coach, Duke, Rufus, would always, talk about it.
Shout out to Coach Koch.
Yeah.
And Coach Rufus.
Yep.
And Coach
Everybody at
Wanderlei,
Rufus
and all
Sport.
those dudes at Rufus Sport. Stand up.
And Biggie on his recent win too.
Yeah, knocking cats out at light heavy.
Yep.
Biggie's gonna eat a lot at Thanksgiving too.
Yeah,
I stole Biggie's shoes.
Big boy,
People don't know this. I literally stole Biggie's shoes one time and ran them into the dirt. It was I left him this raggedy old pair of shitty Reeboks that I had on. Sorry, Biggie, I still owe you.
But yeah, Duke would tell me, because I feel like there was a point in my career when I was younger, it was easy because I was a hothead. So I lived my life as a hothead. It was an easy transition to fight because they were both similar.
A lot of people that fight have demons.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could it was easy. Mental thing, I knew that was a part of it, but I knew I had it. I knew I had that, I'm going to fuck this guy up, right? The older I got, I became more mature, and I didn't want to be a hothead. I don't want to be an asshole to everybody, like I calmed down, and I feel like in the cage I was kind of missing a little bit of that
edge,
oomph. So I've had many talks with Duke about it, and Duke's told me, he's like, man, in the fight game sometimes you got to put yourself in dark places, and the older you get, you have to know how to flip that switch in your mind. And I feel like for a long time I just didn't have that switch. Now, that going to this with my dad, it's not a dark place. I don't want to put myself in a dark place, but it is definitely my why. I feel like if there's any highlighted reason why I still want to fight, I think this is the one. Mm-hmm. And even my last fight, I said it, I want to dedicate this fight to my dad. All my fights, that's why I'm doing it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because I can show you guys. Every once in a while, I go on my phone and, just remembrance, I go to my dad's Facebook, and literally, I don't know what camera can see it.
Oh, they should all be on.
But that's his cover photo, right?
Yeah.
Me and you on the weigh-in.
And
seriously, that's all, he would talk to all his friends. It was always about us.
Yeah.
It wasn't about.
He was proud of his boys.
Yeah, he was proud of his sons, and it wasn't about him or the great things he's done or how much he helps people out. He was always talking about us. So keeping that memory living on, like, there are goals that I've had at such a young age that I felt like I was losing, or I was being okay with not doing them. Mm. After that happened, like a resurgence. Yeah. Like I had
a calling.
I got to do this now.
Yeah.
Like, this ain't it. Like, I want to do it, and I got to do it,
Yeah. So when you called me, I had just picked up, this driving shift, and I was 8 hours away. And you're talking about, when you were talking about how much time it felt like it took for Mom to call you back and confirm. When I talked to Mom, she told me that first of all, I was in shock.
Yeah.
I was in a state of total panic, and I felt powerless.
Yeah.
Because I was so far away. I had just left Mom and Dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
7 hours before that. And I gave Dad a hug on the porch. And we walked down the steps. And he patted me on the back. And he said, drive safe.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was a consummate worrywart.
Yeah.
He worried all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Like I said, to a fault,
Yeah.
probably to his stress.
Yep.
He wasn't worried at all.
Mm-hmm.
He was totally chill, which was really strange.
Yeah.
This is the same guy that on the way to Yosemite drank 17 coffees in a row and would not go to sleep because he thought that we were going to run us off some underpass or some shit. And, here's Dad. Check it out. How you doing up there, Courtney?
Yeah.
So he was chill though, and he had felt like we were trustworthy of going on long trips, or he sensed something. But I remember walking away from Dad that night, and this is no bullshit. I don't take anything for granted. I know what Dad was. I know what he's meant for me and all the memories he had. But I went, now I'm going to be gone for a week, and regardless of whether that week seems significant or not, when my dad is this age, mm-hmm. there is a higher proportionate odd that when I come back, he won't be here.
Yeah.
And the older I get and the more people I lose or see lost, the more I think about that with simple things like going on a week or 2 long vacation and realizing this really could be the last time. So I feel incredibly blessed that I was aware of that in that moment. And I made it a point because we just happened by chance to have to stop there. I'd left something at Mom and Dad's.
Right.
And so we stopped over there to pick it up, but it gave me one more opportunity to see him. And 7 hours later, he was gone.
Yeah.
So I felt really blessed to have that. But when you called, I did the same thing that you did. I thought there was a miracle that would happen.
Yep.
That hope. Don't despair until you know for sure. But there was this dread.
Yeah.
Mom called me, or I called Mom back later, and she told me that, and I called Brent, or you called Brent. I don't even remember who called Brent.
I think you did.
I think I called Brent or Courtney did to get Brent over there because he was local and we were far away.
Right.
And when she told me, she called me back and said, he was getting cold. That was something that still really dark. It burned itself into me. That was the moment that I knew he was gone.
Yep. And
I remember the same thing. I got out of the car and just a daze.
Yeah.
This cannot fucking be real. Mm-hmm. This can't be happening. And I got around the car, the back of the car, when I realized that it was real.
Yeah.
And I as soon as my heart embraced that Dad was gone, I collapsed in the back of the car and don't really remember anything except, screaming and sobbing. But Courtney told me after the fact, she's like, you remember what you said? This was like days later. Mm. And I go, no. What? And she goes, you said I knew it. Almost as if to assume that I had this feeling of dread about this vacation, that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I felt like, and I don't know what you felt like, but I felt like this grief would come in these huge waves where your mind is trying to process what's happened, and then it accepts it a little bit, and then it rejects it, and it tries to get back into its habit loops again, But I felt like I was in a daze for weeks.
Yeah.
And if you asked me to recall much about the 2-3 weeks after Dad passed away, I really couldn't tell you much about what happened. I just know that I was in a daze.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that wave come back every once in a while where I convince myself, okay, I think I've grieved Dad's death and I'm in a positive place and I love the guy and he's always with me, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about how I feel the same way in a lot of ways. But do you feel that wave of grief sometimes? Because I feel like when I think about the finality of Dad being gone, I feel incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Like I feel an incredible sense of loneliness because, well, of course.
Yeah.
He's a caretaker.
Yeah.
He's the nurturer.
Yep.
Do you feel that wave come back every once in a while that surprises you even still? Where you're like, whoa, like I thought I was over it, but it hit me really hard today.
Yeah, I do. And I was actually I made a post about this. I didn't include Dad, but Dad has a big part of it. So growing up, fighting, or when I started fighting, one of my big things is, I put my headphones in, and I'm cranking up the tunes, and I'm just shadow boxing, you know. Um,
Usually Eminem or Hobson.
yeah, Eminem or Hobson, some dark shit, with a good beat. But I'm shadow boxing, and I talked about it, um, those early WEC days, even, whether I had a breakup with an ex that went bad, and I'm going to show them revenge, right? I'm going to show them, and I'd hype myself up, and I'm shadow boxing, and I'm putting myself in that walk. It was funny because I caught myself doing it the other day. Like I'm Jazz, I want to fight. And I'm doing it, and every time I do that, I put myself in that walk to the octagon. And ever since Dad passed, every time I do this, like, the one thing I'm thinking about is making Dad proud. Like, walking out, feeling the energy, feeling Dad's energy with me, just carrying that all the way there. And so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's grief, but emotionally, that hits me. Like, there are times I've done that, and then I just break out crying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm shadow boxing, I'm jumping, I'm visualizing victory, and then I'm fucking sobbing, and I'm just in a pool of tears, right? And that's because of Dad. Because, like I said, revamping my career, he's got pretty much all to do with it. I honestly could say, not losing Dad, I may had a couple more fights, but I don't think my goals would be where they are now.
Yeah.
I've set my goals now.
Yeah.
Like, these are things I'm going to achieve.
And Dad was telling you to fight at welterweight.
And Dad, yep, and that's another thing.
And your last fight was at welterweight.
Right.
It couldn't have really played out any better.
Well, and it's one of those things, like, I would always tell Dad, you don't understand this sport like I do. I know what I'm doing. Like, those guys are too big.
Dad, you think you got it all figured out?
Yeah. But the funny thing is, as wise as Dad is, he wasn't a fighter, but he'd tell me that. You cut way too much weight. You're huge. You need to not be cutting that much weight.
He did.
And then, I moved up 70, and sure enough, I felt way better.
Better than ever.
Way better. It didn't have to have a crazy weight. But, I mean, I have days, man, and I have a lot of dreams with Dad, and that's a whole nother thing. But I have a lot of dreams with Dad, and he's always very calm. He's always very loving. He's never, I never feel bad about it. But then it seems like the next day I think, I just wish I would have done more with him. I wish I would have done this and that. But then I forget how much I had, like, how much contact. Even me not living in Iowa. Like, I talk to him all every single day.
Yep.
And not only that, living in Milwaukee, I mean, for the first 7 years, I'd come back to Iowa every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you were back a lot.
Right. So, the only thing that I kind of had grief about was, when this happened, me and Lindsay had a big ordeal. And the one thing I wish I could take back is me and Lindsay were one of the worst fights we've ever had. And Dad had been hounding me for weeks to come back. And, he would never hound me. He would be like, I understand, you got to do this. Well, just when you come back, we'll see you. He was hounding me. We need to go on a fishing trip. Like, when are you coming back? Like, literally just up my ass. Mm-hmm. And I felt that was kind of weird, too. I was kind of like, this is, like, just coming out of nowhere, And I was fighting with Lindsay really bad, and he called me to see if I was coming, and I snapped on him a little bit because I was so stressed with this girlfriend deal that was going down, and he had been hounding me about it. And I snapped on him, and I felt bad immediately after we hung up on the phone. And I called him back, and I'm like, Dad, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to put that on you. And later on, is like, he was so cool about it. Like, he didn't take offense to anything.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time I snapped on Dad the way I did. And it was recently, before he died. And and I know he already stressed about my finances, all kinds of stuff. You know, he takes that burden, but that's one of the things, grief wise. You know, um, us having that fight, I didn't go down when I said I was going to, and obviously, if I would have known the repercussions, what was going to happen, I would have stayed a month. You know.
Yeah.
So
Can't ever predict that.
Right, but we can't predict it, and but what I will say is I'm very happy that I did go down. I stayed for a week. I hounded him to go fishing. He wouldn't do it. You know how Dad is.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do this, that, and the other, right? So, it sucks we didn't get to go fishing, but even the little shit, dude. I like going back. I knew how much it meant to him for me to be there, because when, like, even 2 weeks, I didn't make it for that 2 weeks, but when I made it on that third week, he had like 2 or 3 boxes of Kodiak pancakes waiting for me.
Yeah.
Because he knew I love those, right? So he prepared all this, and I'm just glad I got back. But I won't forget, I was actually leaving to LA after that week I stayed there. That was the last time I saw Dad. And he gave me a hug. He helped fix my tires.
Do that little pat on your back.
Little
pat,
side
pat,
hug.
pat, pat.
But I wouldn't change it for anything, because that's
his style.
his style,
Yep.
right? And it was right there, right next to the driveway. Got in my car, and that's when I saw that accident.
Yeah, the motorcycle. Yeah.
So I saw someone lose their life driving to
bike,
Chicago to go out to LA. I saw a dude. I'm about 95% sure he passed, but he hit a guardrail. He was looking for something on his bike, hit loose gravel, and I saw him hit this guardrail going probably 70, 75 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and he was
zero chance.
Yeah, that was it. But I remember calling Dad, because I'd never seen anything so violent.
Yeah,
like
you called me too.
I called you too, because you see videos and stuff, seeing it live
shakes you up.
Yeah, it shakes you up.
You know that there's a family somewhere that is getting bad news.
And that's and we talked about that, like, that's someone else's loved one.
Yeah.
They didn't expect
someone else's baby.
They're going through the same thing.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to Dad, and Dad more fortified the same thing very calmly. He's like, well, we all go. You just never know.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that eerie about that is that happened right before this ordeal. And I remember the week I was in LA, he was watching Hulk. And I remember as much as my mom said he hated it, I know he loved Hulk.
Yeah, he does.
Hulk would piss him off, but he was watching Hulk, and I think he got a little buddy bond with him. And even though I wasn't there to see him, Lindsay's parents came up. They were up the weekend he passed. They came up to Milwaukee to hang with us, and they actually picked the day before he passed. They picked Hulk up from.
Oh wow.
From Dad, and it's just I don't know, man. It's just I grieve because I was in Milwaukee, and I wish I could have been there and seen him a little bit more, but everybody's going to have that. Now, on the light side of this, on the positives, we were talking about me moving for a while, but still it was stuck in my head. No, I got stuff to do. I'm going to do this in Milwaukee. When Dad passed, I'm like, yep.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I'm moving.
The thing was, it's interesting you say that, because we had talked about it last year in Florida. It was kind of when we first started thinking about this. We were going to start teaching together and move forward in this direction. So we had been scheming this for a while, but there was no set concrete date.
Yep.
And I felt like, even though we were inching closer to it because of this, as soon as Dad passed away, it was. I almost didn't even question it. I almost knew that you were going to move back. It just was time,
Yep.
And it's turned out awesome. You know what I mean? Even though we don't have necessarily in Cedar Rapids the world-class camp that Duke's built up over 15 years, you've got a lot of experience in martial arts, and we do have a lot of experienced people there. And as a testament to training in general and willpower, we were able to put together this camp to honor Dad with, a lot less than what you normally are used to, a lot less to prepare for. But again, we've shown this a million times, this will. It's willpower. It's what you're going to use, how you're going to use the resources and the passion, the why that drives you.
Right. Well, and that, I mean, one of the biggest things, and we've talked about it, even smaller teams, smaller gyms. If you look at your Conor McGregors, if you look at those guys, nobody knew what that gym was.
Right.
Before he started turning it up. If you look at Conor's biggest thing, it's confidence. It's mental. We talk about the mental side, right? So that was something that I would always question. Well, I got all these killers here. I got that. Like, I need this. That I fight in the UFC. What's crazy is I went from that mindset. Like, I need this. After Dad passed, and I kind of, you know, when I got through the grieving and feeling, and it was time to get back to work, it's like, all right, let's go, you know. And not having all the tools, but having my mentality back, having my killer instinct back, having all that stuff back. I mean,
the drive, yeah.
The older you get, you realize how mental this is.
Yeah.
And I just, even my last fight, it solidifies that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't go into that fight thinking, God damn it, I wasn't at, and I love Rufus Sport. Great camp, one of the best in the world. I love all those guys there. But I wasn't thinking, damn, I wasn't at Rufus Sport.
Right.
I'm going to lose. It's like, I'm going to fucking win. I've trained my ass off. If I don't have as many training partners, I'll get more bag work in.
Yeah.
I'll get more running in. You know, fighting's been around forever. There's still things that everybody does. Run, bag work, jump rope, all that stuff, right? So I think is very important, you know, that will to win. But yeah, after losing Dad and that, I knew that it was, you know, even him working as much as he did on the gym, I almost took it on myself like it would be a spit in the face if I didn't stay.
Right.
Like a spit in his face, and I didn't want to do that. I'm like, no, I'm going to honor this, you know.
Well, just so that people know, when Dad passed away, we were a week away, week or two away from opening this gym, Hard Drive Performance Center, which is where Eric and I train now. And we've been involved in heading this gym for years and years and years. But we were, you know, just completely enveloped in this project, and Dad was a part of it every single step of the way. He made a lot of the recommendations for what the finished product was, and he was literally there with me, literally
every day,
every single day, checking on me to make sure I was doing shit right.
Yeah.
Me and Tilson.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So this was a really hectic time for us anyway, and when this happened, I didn't want to go on this vacation. I thought it was really ill timing, but you know, everything was kind of set in motion. And you know, now we've talked kind of about losing Dad and how it affected us, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate. Now let's talk about how it's changed our perspective after the fact. You talked about becoming more spiritual. I so badly wanted to and still want to believe that somebody that I love so much is in a conscious presence, is in a conscious state somewhere going, my name's Doug Koch, I'm up here now. The objective scientists that my mom trained us to be, the objective person that wants to be super analytical and wants data, doesn't necessarily accept that right away.
Right.
And I don't think that we need to. So how does your, you know, my view of afterlife has been for a long time this. The only thing that I can quantify or prove is that this afterlife that people speak of is an actual literal thing. And now what I mean by that is it's not I ascend to some place and I'm being judged or not judged or I'm a conscious spirit, but basically whatever influence I have upon the world while I'm here will take my legacy, my traditions, my influence forward, right? If I'm a good person, I affect 100 good people, then they go on to affect 100 good people, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
That's afterlife. It could be argued that Dad, in that respect, is still living because there's so many people he affected in so many ways that are doing work on his behalf now.
Yeah.
Now it's not even, they're just motivated mixed martial artists. They're working with him in heart and mind.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I feel now. What do you think about this? You said that you've become a more spiritual person. And
touching on that, I go back to you can't destroy energy, you can only change it. So even thinking, but before we talk about afterlife or whether, you're a conscious being somewhere else or whatever, I think of it as, that energy. Everybody thinks of it as that energy, that it's that one person, right? And when they're dead, that energy lifts up and it just goes to another plane.
And goes,
right? There's energies everywhere.
It's just
everything, right?
Right.
So,
the way
when
we
I was talking to
perceive it
this,
is different. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to this my buddy in North Carolina, Tony, that runs Core Fitness there, and we were talking about energy and how it passes on. And if you think about if there was no Doug Koch, so because there was a Doug Koch, he put ideas, principles into us, created us to what we are. We're doing what we do now. We affect a lot more other people. So just simply without Doug Koch, none of that would exist the way it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Even the little things. It goes into the deeper and the little things. So that's where, before afterlife, that's where I truly, nobody's ever really gone. If you influence something here and things are done a certain way because you were here, even if you aren't, that's still your energy. Your
right.
energy is still coursing. It's still being put to use. As for spirituality, now this is on the whole other spectrum. So me and you both aren't religious. Even spiritual, before Dad, I'd say maybe, but I wasn't, I'm still a thinker. We don't know this. More questions than answers.
Prove it.
Right?
You know
right,
what I mean?
Right.
That's what we do.
More
questions.
Right. More questions than answers. And so this happened. Now, I'm going to backtrack when Dad was alive. It was at the co-op. And I'll never forget that day. I got a poke bowl. And he got a cinnamon roll. We were sitting down and talking. And I don't know how we got on to it. But we got on about lucid dreaming. Like being alive. Being conscious during your dream.
Yeah, so people that don't know what lucid dreaming is, it's when you're aware and conscious that you're in a dream state and then can potentially take control of your dream, which is fucking rad.
Right, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 times I've done it, and it's like, holy shit, I'm living in a fantasy.
Right. So I was telling Dad about this, and I forget, I think me and Mom were talking about some book or something about this. And one of the last conversations I had with him, I was telling him about this. We talked about it. So now go after his passing. Now, in my grieving state, in those first couple weeks, I want a vision, or I want to have it because I'm missing Dad. I want to see him. This is where I want to believe.
Yeah.
Because I don't want him to be gone. Right. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Right. So then let's get I think it was about 6 months after his passing, and I was living at Mom's, and we'd opened the gym, teaching, and I remember before I went to bed, I want to say I went to bed about midnight, but before I went to bed, I remember thinking, I got all this stuff to do tomorrow. I got to do this. I got to get up early. I think I had a car thing, and my classes, teaching all the classes. So I was kind of mentally getting ready for that. Now, most nights, I do think of Dad, some heavier than others. Some I might just have a little thought or memory, or, he's my wallpaper on my phone. So every time I look at my phone, he's there.
Same.
So I might, I might have a thought. But I remember that night, Dad wasn't in my mind. I was trying to get stuff done. So go to bed, and I had this dream where we're all in the house. So, and I was in the sunroom. I was in the sunroom specifically with our 2 big patio sunglass doors. Yeah. It was me, you, Mom. I think the kids were there. I think we were all there. And we were all just, family stuff. I think Mom and Peyton and Ronan were doing like a card game on the floor or something. And then all of a sudden, Dad walks in through the patio doors, and it was like a shockwave hit me, because at first I accepted it as I'm living in this, like I'm not conscious. I'm like, oh, it's Dad. Hey, Dad.
But then you realize.
Right. Then a shockwave hit me. Like, it was like a dart. Everybody else was gone.
Right.
Once I realized, I'm looking at Dad, and he's got that little smirk on his face.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just looking at him. He's got this smirk. He's not saying anything. And everybody else was gone. We're in the sunroom.
Do you think in this moment in your dream, this spark or this flash was when you realized that Dad was actually gone? And that what you were seeing, you weren't used to seeing because he was gone? Like, do you think in your mind you're like, wow, Dad's dead and I'm talking to him right now? Do you think you made that association, or were you still in your dream like, oh, there's Dad?
Well, at first when he came in, that's what I thought.
But then
I thought, oh, it's Dad. Then when that spark hit, it was like I woke up.
Yeah.
I woke up. But what's funny is when that happened, everybody else was gone. You guys were all there. When he came in, everything was cool. I'm like, oh, hey, Dad. And then when I look at him, he had that, and he's just got that smirk on his face, like a jolt. Mm-hmm. And then all you guys were gone. It was just me and him. And I remember, I go, Dad, you're dead. You're not here. And he just smiled at me. And he's like, he goes, son, he's like, you want to know how I passed? He's like, I know it's been eating at you. He's like, I want you to know. I want to tell you. And I remember in my dream, because I know I'm in a dream now, and I'm conscious, but I'm even aware enough in this dream that you forget a lot that you dream. I'm smacking myself on the head like, Eric, remember this. Like, I kept smacking I remember doing that. I'm like, remember this, remember this, remember this.
When you woke up?
No.
Oh,
no.
Like in the
dream.
Yeah.
In the dream, I'm like, remember this, because
Yeah.
I've got to carry this over.
Right.
Like, I've got to carry this over. I got to tell somebody about this. So I remember doing that, and he waited. He was very patient, just smiling, and he waited. And he asked me, he's like, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, Dad, tell me. So, and then he made this gesture with his hand. Mm. And it was kind of vague to me, but I felt like he made a motion like it traveled up.
Yeah.
It traveled up.
Like he said, was showing you the path?
Right, the path. And he said, I had a blood clot, traveled to my heart in my sleep. He's like, I didn't feel anything. I was dead instantly. Mm-hmm. Like I was gone. And he's like, it wasn't painful. I didn't suffer. Everything is okay. And he's like, I just want you to know I'm fine. I'm fine. And I was like, okay, thanks, Dad. Like, you know. And I gave him a huge hug, gave me a big hug. He stepped back, looked at me, smiled, boom, woke up. 3 o'clock in the morning, on the dot. On the dot, 3 o'clock. And the time, it has some significance if we look into it a little bit more. But it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I got goosebumps. And I'm like hyperventilating almost. Like, what the fuck just happened? I go to bed again. Took me about half hour, but then I go back to bed. And then I wake up, and then I remembered all that happened. Like, I remembered everything, you know? That's when I'm telling you, and I told Mom, and of course Mom's very spiritual.
Yeah.
I told her that. She goes, oh, that wasn't a dream. That was a vision. You had a vision. Yeah. You know, it's Mom.
Yeah.
So, but what's crazy about that is I think more of it, the traveling, that motion. I remember when I was in LA and he was watching Hulk. He was saying he had like a bursa sac on his knee.
Yeah.
He had trauma on his knee, and he said his knee was really swelling.
Yeah.
And I remember telling him, because I've had that before, and I've had to have it drained and all kinds of stuff. So like, it just makes me think about it. But what's crazy is I've had a couple dreams with him, and a couple of them, I've had more dreams like that where I'm aware. I'm aware,
conscious
and he's
of
there.
What's going
and
on. Yeah.
He doesn't talk as much. He doesn't. Whenever I have those, he talked a lot more in that one. It's more just subtle little things. He's just walking and he's just smiling, you know. And but what I take, like, this is something I've never experienced. It's something, one of the last conversations we had, something he knew. It didn't happen when I was in a distraught, I want to see Dad moment. Happened completely random, which to me, it's almost like either that's really just ironic that it went that way, or it was almost planned that way.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so ever since then, man, and I've had a couple more dreams. Like I said, he'll float through them, and I'll be like, I know I'm in a dream, and I know Dad's not there, but he's just smiling, and I'm not even talking to him. He's just a passerby. But the more I think about that dream and just the way it went down, I don't think it's our consciousness necessarily goes to another plane and we're all hanging out together. But the more I've talked to Mom about it, the more I've read on people having near death experience or been dead and been resuscitated and come back. I think that there's a lot more to dreams than we think. And then that gets into DMT. DMT being a natural chemical our body produces that puts us into that dream state. I think there's a lot more to that. I'm not going to say I believe 100% this is the way, but I do think I've opened my mind a little bit more up to, I think something does happen.
I don't think anybody can say that, right? Like, I don't think anybody can say, I know for sure. That's the whole point that we're talking about this.
Right,
because nobody really knows. That's what's intriguing.
Right.
But they kind of do know. Like, science knows that you really don't just disappear. The real question, I think, for people, and the thing that people have a hard time wrapping their mind around, is consciousness.
Yes.
Does consciousness expire? Well, like, it seems like such an amazing loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it always has for me personally. Like, when Mom and Dad took me through the graveyard when I was a kid or whatever, and I'd look down at these gravestones, and it was like 1906 to 1985.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a whole life right in this gravestone.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows now fucking shit about what this person went through in their whole 80 years of existence. That, just the idea that there was this person's whole life encapsulated on a, like, 12 by 12 piece of granite was kind of, like, sad to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
This person's influence, I would later learn, of course, is still sowing its seeds through people, through their grandchildren, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But the idea of consciousness, what was fascinating to me, and that's what most people can't fathom, right? They can't fathom not existing because they've never not existed before.
Right.
They've always existed, so it's really, really hard for me to go, well, it can't be just a thing where I just don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like your ego can't handle the thought of life going on without you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of this. I think people's need to explain a fairy tale ending where this consciousness ascends is kind of a way, and I've always felt this, it's kind of a way for them to rationalize forever.
Yes.
And finality. The thing about death that is so hard and lonely is finality. Mm-hmm. It's knowing I'm never in this earthly consciousness going to see this person again. And if there's another consciousness, I don't understand it yet, which means there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a possibility that there's all kinds of possibilities. There's a possibility that we're all wrong.
Yeah.
That I ascend up and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This isn't the end. Like, I'm going to go on forever and I'm going to see Dad.
Right.
And Grandma Lois and Grandpa Vince and all this shit. But there's also a possibility that you're just gone.
Yeah.
And there's also a possibility that the energy that truly doesn't get destroyed is just molecularly absorbed by the earth.
Recycled.
However, people think, and they like to presume, that that's not fucking crazy awesome. That's not miraculous.
Right.
That it's not miraculous. And here's, I think, where I want to make sure that I'm really, really objective about this, because I feel like having the idea of an afterlife or a guarantee for your soul to ascend or your consciousness to continue is a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it guarantees people eternal life.
Yeah.
What if that precept is incorrect and the only life we have is
the
this
one you're
one?
living?
If that's the case, then heaven is supposed to be what we make right now. It's not where we're going.
Right.
It's what we're creating for our kids and for our kids' kids. It's trying to create that which we aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of consciousness ascension, you could potentially call it arrogant and go, you just can't fathom not existing.
Yeah.
Look at social media. Most people
I
can't
know.
fathom not existing for 5 seconds.
Yep.
So the real question for me, and I'm not any closer now than I ever was, is what happens when we die. And it's nice to say that I'm in a place where if what happened when Dad passed away is he just passed away and his life was over, I'm still hopeful because he is living through the actions of others.
Yeah.
And he's actually living even more intensely now because I can echo the same sentiment. I've been more driven, more disciplined, more focused to improve myself as a person than ever before.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I became a man till I'm nearly 40, and I was sure that I was.
Well, and think about people that don't have dads that are in their life that are good parents.
I know.
If they lose them, do they care?
No.
No.
And if they don't have them, this is what blows my mind, bro. Like we had gangster ass parents.
Yeah.
We had a hippie mom that took no shit, and she was a rebel. And even though she was a rebel, and even though she's an authoritarian, she told us to chase our dreams. She told us to be poor and be happy before we were wealthy and fucking miserable.
Yep.
She instilled. I was talking to somebody about listening to The Doors on record and Jimi Hendrix when I was like 6 or 7. I've told you this story.
Yeah.
And I go, Mom, why Riders on the Storm? Why don't some of these lyrics don't even make sense? And she's like, oh yeah, well a lot of people were tripping on shrooms and acid back then. Like she never tried to shelter me from everything. But then of course, like you said about Dad, we have this nurturing father that would do anything, right? He was a man's man. He would fix shit and he would build shit and but he was the kindest person you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And the only thing that I can think of is at some point in his life, he made this grand decision to change from the weekend drinker to this full-time dad. But his life, I still feel is surging even stronger than it was before. Because every single thing that I do, because he was in my life for nearly 40 years. Yeah. Everything that I do, I think about him.
Oh, yeah.
Get in his truck. I use his tools. I ask him questions in my mind about things, and he answers them because I've had so many conversations with him.
You can go back,
I can go back, and going back helps me go forward. But, it's been a really, really interesting process, but also at the same time, it's, a great maturing process as well. Like, I know for a fact I've become a better person in the last 2 years because of his absence and what it's shown me. Yeah. But for what it is worth, I've gotten some comfort knowing that I've had a couple conversations, probably 3 or 4 conversations with Dad about how he wanted to pass away. And he told me he wanted to pass away in his sleep and comfortable. And he didn't want to decline. He didn't want to wither away or get really, really old. Dad was in great shape. He was in a great place with Mom in terms of their relationship. They were having a great time. He knew that his son was coming home soon, and we were going to start this gym. Life literally, Dad was in a place where he might have had less stress than he ever had in his whole life, and he was content and happy. Yeah. And so, while I miss the guy every day, and some days I'm like, hey, you've grieved and you're over it. And then other days I'm just bawling my fucking eyes out. Yeah. He's kind of always there with me all the time. And I feel like when somebody's been in your life for that long, those waves, they're going to come back longer in between each ones, right? As time goes by. But they're going to come back. In about the time when they don't come back anymore, you're ready for yourself. You're like... Yeah. Hey man, I've grieved my father. I've lived my mother. I've lived my life. I'm fucking 80, 90 years old, and I'm ready to go or whatever now myself.
Well, and even thinking about it, going back to like thinking I'm 30 and I'm losing my dad when I'm 30, and he's as important of a man as he is to me. But then it goes back to things he always used to tell me, like you get older, time goes way faster. Now time is going so fast that. And it was something he's always told me, and he hasn't told me anything like life-based like this that hasn't turned out to be untrue. It's all true, The older you get, the faster it goes. So we talk about, even, don't want to be a Debbie Downer and gripe on your age, but you being 39, right? 39, right? You remember when Dad was 39.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
This is what we've talked about this, and this is weird to me because the tattoo I have of my dad on my leg is when he was in his early to mid 30s.
Yeah.
And so to have you or me around that age, it's kind of weird because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I remember when you were my age.
Yeah.
Which means I'm about halfway done.
Right.
With my own life. And there will be some great advances in technology. I'm hoping to be chipped and have nanobots fighting cancer in my body, and that's all fine and good. But with the living standards what they are right now, there's a good chance that I'm half done. I might be more than that.
Right.
And when somebody passes away like that at the age, and I'm 40, it puts shit into perspective. You said, well, he passed away when I'm 30, so I feel very fortunate, right? But then you think about my wife, Courtney, who's sitting right behind us. She lost her dad when she was 21, 20.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
We got so much time with our dad, and Courtney got so much less, and a lot of people don't get any. Right.
Well, and that's the numbers game, and I just want to say, I'm not saying that in a negative. I don't want to say that as, I'm harping as, I lost my dad at a young age. But what I was going with, things get faster the older you get.
Yeah.
That was something I'd worry about. Like, he's gone in 30. I can't imagine if I lived to 170 years without my dad. Those important years, the years you're raised by your parents, I feel like life goes by so fast. It's not, I don't dread it. I don't dread getting older, and it sucks not having dad, but it happens to everybody. And we talked about this as perspective. You lose a loved one, well, you're next. You're next on, not to be a downer and you're going to die tomorrow, but
that's perspective.
In the scheme the scheme of your family, you're next. So, and people have this, death is bad. Death, everybody dies. Yeah. Everybody dies,
if you do it right, you don't want, I don't want to die because I fucking love being alive.
Well,
I love my family.
Yeah.
My life is full of love. I love what I do. If the only reason that I don't want to die isn't because I'm afraid of it. I've seen it. I've watched people pass away. I've watched people wither away of old age. I get how the process works. I just love being alive.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't when they really should, because this one thing that I wanted to segue into, and we can kind of conclude this, but in the grand scheme of things, the fact that we're even here, it gets more mind-blowing to me every single day that I think about it, that we've talked about this ad nauseum, but how big the universe is, the perceivable universe as it is right now, how big it is right now. We can't fathom in our mind of mind and our hearts of heart how long it would take to get from one end to the other. It's incomprehensible to our minds. But we can try to wrap our minds around it, and when we do, it blows our minds even more.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, that on this little planet, floating out in the middle of fucking nowhere, there's a pool of muck that eventually turns into, multi-celled organisms. And then eventually those turn into aquatic creatures, which crawl out onto land and become dinosaurs, and then primates, and then us.
Yeah.
And then all of the variables, all of the intricate little things that have to take place for your mom and my mom and our dad to meet.
Yeah.
And then to have us.
Yeah. The odds are crazy.
The odds are so astronomically small that if every kind of Debbie Downer loser out there realized what the odds were of them fucking existing.
Even with the 7 billion people on this planet, people don't think they're special. But you got to think every action, whether your mom and dad, had you on a certain day.
How many variables?
It's going to be, that's not you.
Yeah.
It would be something else. Yeah, it would be someone else. Mm-hmm. So the chances, and I mean, we talked about this when we found out how much of a rebel our dad was when we talked to our Uncle Dave. about trip he took to Mexico and like almost getting in a car accident and dying.
Yeah.
You know, if that would have happened, obviously we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have done.
We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right. We wouldn't be. You know, it would be different. So
So it's miraculous. Life is miraculous.
It truly is. You're truly blessed to even be here. You know, and then and going. I wanted to touch base on kind of just one more little thing on afterlife. More on, you know, it's how much we don't know. We don't know, but even with science, we know that there are multiple dimensions. We know that's a thing. We know there are things that our eyes can't pick up.
Off spectrum.
So we know that, you know, people think we're still in this state of, we think our consciousness goes somewhere else. Not saying that our consciousness doesn't. Like I said, I can't say that that's a fact, but there are so many different things, man. And it's kind of cool to think about. I actually enjoy not knowing, because there's so many different ideas as to what happens when you pass. And it goes back to even we're all one. When you think of, you know, even if we're recycled into the earth.
That's 100% true.
We all are.
Yeah, that's fact.
Right.
You know,
right.
like this whole thing, that's what's kind of beautiful about it is if you take a lot of religions' God, and you replace it with the word the universe, or the words the universe.
Yeah.
A lot of things kind of coalesce and make sense. The universe is kind of a nasty bitch sometimes. And in the Old Testament, God was pretty ornery and killed a bunch of people for no apparent reason.
Right.
But that's, to me, that's the universe. If I pass away and my body decomposes into the ground, right? And it becomes this egoless form of sustenance for worms and birds and just the earth in general. And the earth in general is connected to a bigger cosmos, right? Yeah. This is all energy, like you said, in flux in some capacity, and it's all working together. The only difference is maybe my consciousness isn't there, or maybe who knows, maybe my consciousness is just a perception thing. My consciousness is feeding through the behavior of multiple people, and my body in its state went to the ground. But this being the natural order of things, I'm old, I'm the old model, it's time for something new. It's time for this new process. I'm okay with that, and I think that's just as awesome and fucking crazy is this idea where I ascend up. I think they can be one and the same. I think without the ego, or with this demanding that I have to like still be Keoni.
Right.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You can just die.
Yeah, right.
You know, and you can your influence can continue to move on.
And it goes back to even thinking you've got to do everything a certain planned way that someone else has planned out for you while you're on this earth. That's the thing. In the case that you do die and nothing happens, you're recycled, right? One, you don't have a conscience, so it really doesn't matter anyway. But the one thing you did miss out on was your life when you were here, living your life. I'm very fortunate, and we are very fortunate to have the parents we do, because I took a gamble. I took a huge risk. I dropped out of high school. I wanted to be a professional athlete. Most people would be like, that's fucking crazy.
And they did.
And they did.
And it's never going to work.
Now, and here's the thing. I'm 31 now. Just like you, I love life. I don't want to die. But if I did die, I've done so many things that I can say I lived. You know what I'm saying? I lived. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, well, that's to that point, I was just talking to somebody about it, Courtney, actually. Life does seem to go fast. And you look around you at like these kids coming up in the gym, and you're like, what the fuck, man? You were like 3 feet just a couple weeks ago. Now you're taller than I am, literally.
Yeah.
It happens fast, but on the flip side of that, I've paid attention, and I feel like I've been more mindful than some. And so the amount of shit that we've went through, the different phases that you go through just in the 30 or 40 years that we've been alive, specifically in the industry that we are in, like the path that we set, like self-trained who the fuck does that shit?
Yeah.
It feels like I've went through many, many lifetimes. Yeah. Like I could totally get why when somebody's 80, they're either super grumpy about the shit that they can't control and the
Right.
shit that they didn't do when they should have done
Right,
it,
right.
right? Or they're just happy as fuck.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, who cares? I might die tomorrow. Let's live it up.
Right,
Let's have
yeah.
a good time. They
Yeah.
appreciate the shit out of life.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been really blessed in that I've been mindful of it, but I acknowledge that it seems to tick by faster when you get into a routine.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, and you also probably, try to not have the strictest routine.
No.
I try to keep my shit free all the time. And I think a part of that is in defiance of that. It's
Yeah.
going, I want to stay young, I want to stay healthy, and I want to live every second of my life as much as I can. This is something that I talk about and I've written about. I had a strong desire when I was a kid to know as much as I could know,
Mm-hmm.
to experience everything that life had to offer. I didn't like the idea, even when I was like 7, 8, I didn't like the idea of being on my deathbed knowing that I was going to die someday and going, you know what I didn't do? This and this and this and this and this and this and this. I should have done that. That made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I felt like people, when they are alive, they should try to acquire as much perspective as possible so that truth.
Yeah.
Truth was the most important. I wanted to know the answers to the big questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was really about for me, is trying to attain as much knowledge as I possibly can, but also just observing and appreciating every moment and little things. Just going, man, I'm alive.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky to be
Yeah.
alive and to just be able to experience this shit.
Well,
I don't think a lot of people do that. I think
Right.
they go, oh, well, I got to get up and go to work. I've done that shit too.
Yeah.
But I also looked up at the sky at night every single moment that I had the opportunity and went, wow, we are fucking nothing,
yeah.
bro.
Well, I mean, it's this, going back to Friday when I got T-boned.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple years back, man, I'd be really livid. I'd let it eat me up. Got T-boned, car's wrecked. Well,
Total.
I can't do anything about it. So, like, I don't have a car to get me around, but I'm still living my day. I'm not stressing about it. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people, and I've dealt with these people in the past, and, even me and Lindsay's thing where we don't kind of work out. I'm all for planning, but don't plan so much that you never live in the present.
Right.
If you don't live in the present, you're always planning for the future. You're never living.
Or dwelling in the
Right.
past.
You're living, or you're not living. You're planning to live, but
Mhm.
the thing with life. It throws you so many curveballs. So much stupid shit happens that there's always gonna be a problem. There's always gonna be a reason for you not to take a trip. There's always gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that's kind of one thing I'm trying to go by now. Even traveling, taking more trips. It was something I would do for fighting, but I just didn't do to go have a good time. And
Mhm.
that's something I'm doing now. Because the thing is, you truly never know, if you're going to go. And living your life to the fullest and experience it as much as you can. I think that's the whole point of life.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
the
agree.
point of life is to plan it out and just work for the system.
Yeah.
and just live your life as a slave. You've got to open the box a little bit.
Yeah, and it always bothered me, the concept that the overwhelming majority acquire this job that they don't really feel fulfilled by, right? But it brings them income. It brings them some way to provide for the family that they love. And so they do it, and they do it for some corporate structure that might pay off, or
Yeah.
they might lay this person off before they're set to retire.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens? I've worked with these people in the office environment before. They live their whole lives, and there's a guy, Paul, that I used to work with. He was this guy that was invested in MCI.
Mhm.
Came out ahead of it really well, retired early, got bored. Came back to work at this phone company that we were working at, and he was on a entry-level sales job on the same floor that I was.
Yeah.
Funny old dude, bad health, had heart surgery before, used to make dirty jokes, the whole 9 yard.
Yeah.
Paul McNall, the guy in question, he was working there because he just needed something fun to do.
Yeah.
That he liked connecting with people. He wasn't there to break sales numbers or anything like that. He just wanted something to do, and he wanted to keep himself moving, right?
Yeah.
Just like our grandpa kept himself
Mhm.
moving after grandma passed away. He's always in the garden.
Yep.
Well, Paulie, either said something to one of the female managers or snuck a little pinch of one of the female managers' butt and got fired.
Oh man.
Yeah. Can't say I recommend that behavior, Paul, but he was old and maybe he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to do this and fire me, whatever. I don't know what happened, but it was something inappropriate that Paul did. Paul died like just a few months later on Christmas Day.
Really?
And it kind of backed up what you and I have talked about multiple times, that movement is life. Mm-hmm. And if your body stops moving, your brain recognizes it and goes, there's no need for you anymore.
Yep.
So many people they get into this habit where they work this job that they don't really like. They fucking complain about it all day. Mm-hmm. If they took all the time that they spent complaining about it and put it into like a craft, they would master that craft and then be able to set their own future.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we've tried to do it.
Yeah.
Well, when they do that and then they retire at 60 maybe, 65, then they stop. Then they go, oh, I'm retired, I can sit in my day chair and watch TV, if they're potentially unwise. Some go, no, fuck that, we're going to go out and we're going to have a good time, we're going to stay moving, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, I'm going to travel, whatever the case may be. Paulie didn't do that. Paulie sat down in front of a TV and he died. You know? And I don't want to personally myself get to a point in life where I'm just accepting the end. I don't want to wither. I don't want to expire. I don't want to fade. I don't want to end up with some debilitating disease where I whittle myself away. In that respect, it's hard for me to say this, but I'm happy the way Dad passed. Because it's the way he wanted it to go. Like I said, you were coming home. The weather was gorgeous. Everything was perfect for him, and it was just exactly the way he wanted. And that's really what matters. The wake of what people are left with after a death is this huge reverberation, or this wave that changes them in many ways. But what truly matters is that this person that gave his whole life to all of us over and over and over lived a good life. He felt fulfilled in it, and he died the way that he wanted to.
Don't you think it's ironic too? Somebody that lived for other people, not even for himself. He put people before him. After his passing, even after his passing, which, if you think about Dad passing, I don't think he cared if he passed. I know he would care how it affected other people. Him personally, he would joke about it all the time. I'm gonna pass.
I'm not gonna be around much longer.
20 years. Dad didn't fear death.
No,
he didn't fear death. So either. So don't you think it's ironic that, as much as it hurts us, if you look at what we're doing, and this goes back on the positive impact that he's still here, he's still the reason we're doing things. I find it very ironic that he lived his whole life doing things for other people, and still in his passing, even as much as he's stressed out, as much as negative stuff that he dealt with, because I've dealt with the same thing, at peace, all the things we just talked about, he's at peace, whatever happened to him, and now his sons are thriving, right? And he's got grandkids, and they're growing up. I think even though I go back and I think, God, he died too young, Dad needed to be around longer. I think not in a negative way, I think he was here just as long as he needed to be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think the way it's all fallen into place, and even my motivation, my fire, he gave me a revamp. I definitely feel like I'm part of the old me in a good way.
You feel like you believe after Dad passed away, you believe more in destiny?
Yes, I do. And I believe. I'll just share one more story. When I was slated to fight Jose Aldo, I got a couple buddies. They ran a radio show called Fisticuff.
Yeah, I know Fisticuff.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Anton. Shout out to Anton.
He's a cool cat.
He's one of my homies. Yep. But they did it, and I was personal friends with these guys on the side. Not just doing a radio show.
I remember talking to them.
And I remember I went on there and I did this interview, what I think about the fight and all this. And they told me, they're like, all right, Eric, well, we got a surprise guest. Whew, this is getting me goosebumps. We got a surprise guest for you. And they brought Dad on.
Yeah.
and like how much he was, like how proud he was. And Dad's not like a big talker, like getting really emotional in front of people, but it was like almost they weren't even on the line. It was me and him.
Yeah.
And he told me how proud he was of me, and I broke down in tears. It was probably like the most unexpected but like awesome thing that I've ever had happen on like an interview. And I remember when that happened, and then when that fight didn't come to fruition, I got hurt and all that went down. I kind of got back in not in the gutter, but I kind of lost my way a little bit.
In a negative mindset, yeah.
After his passing, I thought about that. And I thought about like how proud he was, and like he was so happy for me. He loved me to death, and he was so proud to where I was at. And then me personally, I looked at where I was at, and I'm not where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. I was kind of getting to a point where I was like, I'm okay with what my career is.
Right. Complacent.
Yeah. After he passed, and I remember how much that phone call meant to me, that's where I kind of had to raise up. I'm like, I ain't done. I'm not done. I'm fucking doing it. I set out to do this. And my coach always told me it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I started thinking about that conversation, I'm thinking, what would Dad want? Now, Dad wouldn't want me to fight if I don't want to do it. He's told me that, right? Yeah. But now we're kind of stuck in a situation.
It's also a good business to not get into if you're not 100% sure you want to.
Right, because
exactly. People will try to fuck you up.
Exactly. But then we're stuck in a cycle because he wouldn't want me to do it if I don't want to do it. But now I want to do it because of him.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, it's kind of crazy to think about.
It's like the duality.
Right. It's like, but it's the irony in all of it. And just the way things are falling out. I'll miss that guy forever. But man, like, even if we look at Mom. Okay, so we look at my personal issues. I feel like in his passing, I'm doing a lot better correcting him. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Let's look at Mom. Mom was playing a bunch of video games, was overweight, not terrible, but she was overweight.
Yeah.
Didn't get enough
sedentary
exercise,
lifestyle.
Right? And now, Mom, as much as she misses Dad, and we have this talk with her all the time, she's doing all the things that Dad wanted her to do.
Right. And she didn't do it because she's a rebel. Shout out to Mom. She would reject any kind of advice you give to her. She would reject it just because you gave it to her, just like we will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. Shout out. No, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. It's, we've talked about it a long time now, but losing Dad changed me quite a bit, and I ate like shit. I ate like total shit. And he was I feel ashamed now because I was feeding my kids shit food too. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the only people in the family feeding him clean food. So
making him eat.
Yeah, making him eat salad. Should have a turkey sandwich.
Yeah.
And Dad was a big clean eater. So about a year after he passed away, roughly speaking, I was having a conversation with a couple teammates, and I was just like, I know how to eat clean. I just choose not to. Yeah. I choose to eat convenient. And it's not really honoring Dad.
Yeah.
Dad would not be happy that I was still eating shitty food. He would want me to eat clean.
Yeah.
So I started eating clean, and unbeknownst to me, multiple people have come to me and said, hey, you know what? Like, you really, like, I didn't even know our cousin Kelly stopped eating sugar. Mom told me that because she saw my posts or whatever.
Yeah.
That's, again, that behavior is not driven by me. It's driven by the memory of Dad.
Yeah.
It's like he's walking me through life, and not only is he walking me through life, it's like I feel his eyes on me more now than ever before.
Right.
And whether his eyes are literally on me or whether the consciousness of him is so much in my heart that like I walk with it every step. I feel like I have to represent it now that he's not here.
Yep.
It's led to these vast changes in my personality that I've wanted for my whole life, just personal discipline with finances and stuff like that I never had, that I'm just like, you know what? Fuck this.
Yeah.
I can do better than this. I don't have to be the piece of shit person that I have been in the past.
Yeah.
I can walk the line a little bit more now. I'm almost 40 years old. This person gave me everything to turn me into a man. Now it's time to actually start being a man.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, and people slip up, of course, but who better than this guy to fucking, get you ready for what life has to throw at you.
Yeah.
He's the best.
And not in a hounding way.
Yeah.
Like people think of parenting is like, and I, once again going to be biased because it's our dad, but he taught us enough, but he also taught us how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I feel it was the perfect mix. He had the perfect levels on both sides. Not always being, there were times Dad would snap on you and tell you got to get shit
Mhm.
together, being that parent. But you always knew he did it out of love. It wasn't out of, I fucking hate you, you're pissing me off, I'm gonna slap you. It was guided in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy because, like I said, that picture of the puzzle piece. It's funny because Dad would hound us about all the shit, and if he were still alive, probably be a lot of the same.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he'd still be harping on us.
Sometimes,
and we might not have changed.
Right. Sometimes it takes something drastic.
Yeah.
For change, right?
Almost all the time.
Right.
We talk about this with Revolution, until people are in so much pain.
Right.
That they're willing to stand up and give their lives.
Without pain, there is no
change.
They both go together. So it's a mind effort to think about sometimes because you get your personal connection with that person. But when you think of it realistically, and we've always been thinkers, I try to take as much positivity out of it, and I know that's what Dad would want.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's honoring him, right?
Right.
Is acting the way that he would want you to act.
That he would want you to act.
And he sets a hard example to follow, some big shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm.
But, losing him kind of brought into perspective both of us what we need to do.
Yeah.
And, one thing that I thought about shortly after Dad passed is how almost angelic he seems now. He was giving to, like I said, I've said this before, he was generous to a fault. He would give his time before he would give his time to himself. He would put his own expectations or wants aside for somebody else's lack of planning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Including you and I both.
Yeah.
Do you think it takes people like that to support people like you and I in doing what we do? Because Dad never wanted any fanfare. He never asked for anything more than appreciation and love. And he almost so selflessly gave himself to his kids that it could easily be argued that whatever fanfare or accolades he could have gotten and deserved for what he was good at, he didn't get.
Yeah.
Because he gave everything to everybody else.
Well, a lot of people don't realize too, even the fan mail that they would send to Mom and Dad's house. Dad was the one that sent that out.
Yeah.
I didn't send it out.
Yeah.
I autographed it, but Dad, he would make that trip every month. If I got something, cards, I'd sign them. He would pay for the stamps if they didn't have a return stamp and send it out. And he's not asking, but that's how he lives. We are Doug Koch. Mm-hmm. He knows that we're his sons.
Right.
So he doesn't want that. He knows us getting that is enough for him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, but this goes now to his passing. That's why our whole goal in fighting is to be remembered, right? That legacy, even as a kid, I want to be Leonidas.
And chiseled in stone. I remember I wanted statues.
I want to be, it's not so much because I've mellowed out a lot the older I've got. I like fighting and that's cool, but it's more important for me for our name, for the Koch name.
Right.
Because our dad, there's a lot of things he did unseen, which you say angelic, that's he didn't do it for people to say he was a good guy. There's a lot, we know it because he was our dad, but he did a lot of shit that he did and didn't ask for anything, and he didn't want kudos.
Yeah, he was totally selfless.
Right,
in his
he was
sacrifice.
Selfless, right?
Yeah.
So how I can honor my dad is giving him, even if he didn't want it, or he wanted me to have it, I want to give it to him anyway.
Yeah.
That's my gift.
When I was a kid, I used to remember him telling me implicitly, I just want you to have better opportunities than I had. Over and over and over. And I almost think now, I think back to that and I go, maybe he didn't believe in his own ability or opportunity to do certain things, but he certainly believed in his sons, and he poured everything into it. And when he used to tell me stories about growing up on the farm and he had chores and stuff. He couldn't go play sports like he wanted to.
Right.
His dad would never let him. And he used to tell me, I want you to be able to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to. And so he must have at some point just completely dedicated himself to his family and his kids, and honestly put himself in a position where he sacrificed so much more, honestly, than even I've ever been able to do.
Right.
I'm a part of our mom too, so I'm super selfish
Yep.
with my time, or at least I've been selfish up to this point. And I pay for that in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, Dad, he might not have ever accomplished or thought that he could accomplish this because he was given all of his life to his sons, but through his sons, now we feel this responsibility to perform and to better ourselves. And like you said, you've got a why now, you know?
Yeah.
Before Dad passed away, I believed in myself.
Yeah.
After he passed away, I believed in anything.
Yeah.
I believed anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I stopped doubting my ability to influence people.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped shutting off the voice in my head that said there's a purpose for you to be here. You're supposed to connect people. You're supposed to express yourself in certain ways. You're supposed to be a positive motivator for change.
Yeah.
I used to think about that shit and go, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to listen to you. You're some 40-year-old MMA coach. But I had that voice in my head.
Yeah.
When he passed away, I very much was like, fuck this. I'm going 100
Yeah.
miles an hour till the very bitter end. I'm going to honor this guy. I'm going to honor what he's done. I'm going to honor my mother. I'm going to honor my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to leave a lasting legacy on the earth. And I don't give a shit if in one generation they don't know my name.
Yeah.
But if what I'm doing is setting course a positive change for the rest of the world, to it someday go, where did this all start? I don't know, but I had a part in that.
Yeah.
Then I win.
That's exactly.
And we win.
Exactly.
And that's all I really care about. And it's cool to be in a place where, you know, back in the day, people they'd be haters or they'd be doubters, and they'd kind of like, man, fuck you. Why do you doubt me?
Yeah.
You know, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what anybody doubts. I don't care what you think I'm delusional.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called that before.
Yeah.
I no longer doubt any belief, because I feel like when you lose a parent, you lose somebody that's that close to you.
Uh-huh.
You're just like, how could it get worse than that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it doesn't get any more, the gravity doesn't get any more harsh than when somebody like our dad is gone, because it's almost like a new lifetime starts. The life without, you know, the life alone. And it can be lonely sometimes, but Jesus, if you have a really, really good person like Pops and Mom to guide us, how lucky are we to be alive? Incredibly. How lucky are we to have parents like that?
I mean, the numbers are set. I mean, there's a lot of kids that don't have any parents.
I have enough perspective, and so do you, to know that if we, as children, as very, very fallible and naive babies, grow up in an environment with somebody that's as awesome as my mom and dad, even if they have their issues and relationship spats here and there, we have such a higher level of opportunity and a higher level to succeed, and the mindset to succeed. The only reason that I can ever attribute any success to is because my dad said he wanted me to have more opportunity. Right. And my mom told me to not get a job that's based on wealth and to do what I love to do. If I didn't have those figureheads, those caretakers reiterating this message, even though they themselves were dealing with poverty, what the fuck would happen to me? I would have been set forth on a path that didn't believe he was capable of shit.
Even going back to when you said, you know, Dad making that sacrifice and not being able to do athletic, because I remember he told me, like, whenever he played football, he's like, man, as a running back, I could move, but Grandpa wouldn't let me. I had to go back on the farm. And I think with Dad, I don't think he questioned himself to a fault, but I think that window of opportunity, if he wanted to do any of that, was gone. But I do think it's funny, if you look at our parents, opposites attract, right? Don't think that they're going to work. They did. The older I get, the more I realize I am a carbon copy of both those people.
Yeah.
And
attributes of both.
If we think of fighting, what do you need? You got to be hard-nosed. You got to be able to take shit from no one and just do your thing, and you need passion, right? Mom, hard-nosed,
so
right? Hard-nosed.
Not so much anymore, but
right.
Sometimes.
But Dad, passion. He was very passionate, and you need those. Those things both need to be together for you to fight. So even me doing what I do, I think that I was even set up. I think we were set up to do what we do. I think our traits that we carry from our parents mix very well into martial arts, and it found it. You know, we found that. So,
Yeah, man, it's been a trip with Dad, and he was there the whole time, and he supported us. And to be quite honest and forthcoming, without Dad, we wouldn't be here.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
obvious, right? We
Yeah.
obviously wouldn't be
Well,
here,
yeah.
but
Obviously
we
would.
wouldn't be put into a position where we could do what we love to do, where we can express ourselves. We wouldn't have had that backing, and we wouldn't be making this podcast without the help of Mom and Pop. So.
Yep.
To conclude, we appreciate you guys checking out our first podcast. It's only going to get better. I apologize if we're a little bit rough, but hopefully you guys can connect with what some of the stuff that we say. We're going to be talking about aliens. We're going to be talking about politics,
All of it.
boo hiss, all of it,
All of it.
in episodes to come. But we look forward to having you then. Thanks, guys. Cool. This podcast was made possible by Gail and Douglas Koch and the Family Hard Drive. Music courtesy of Mike Chino.